how you deal with those challenges of whether it is the world telling you no or whether it is your mind telling you no. How do you move yourself through that?
So I think as an Arabic woman or as a Saudi woman, we've been told no since we're born. So I guess we've been fighting on a daily basis. So by now, it's like second nature to be like, I'll do it, especially if you say no. I mean, the older you get, the more you realize you're just gonna have to figure it out. It doesn't get easier because every day is a new challenge, whether it's in the kitchen or in the society or with what you want to accomplish. But I think if you have a clear vision, I think things somehow get easier, and you just surround yourself with the people that are like kind of positive and see the same things that you see. So
Can you start off by breaking the stigma of having angry chefs?
So the thing is about angry chefs, I feel like it's kind of bound to happen when you're working for insane amounts of hours, putting a lot of people that have a lot of pent up energy in the same space, and at the same time they're always underpaid. The person that's getting all the praise is usually the head chef or the owner or the creator of the concept. Most of the time, they're not the ones that are putting all the effort in. There's a lot of other chefs that are part of a machine. Their input or creativity is not really used. You're just being told what to do, and you just do that. So putting all of these things together, obviously, you're gonna get someone or most people in a bad mood, unfortunately.
I mean, you don't strike me as somebody who would get really angry, but what is it like working in a team of people in that way?
So, I mean, obviously, it's really different because in the way we do it, it's a private fine dining experience. So luckily, we get a few days off, so you get to release that energy. But in the time where I worked in fine dining restaurants or Michelin star restaurants, when you're starting your day at 6 a.m. and finishing at the earliest 12, so that's more than 12 hours of intense work and energy. You're human. You always get in that mood, and a lot of people are screaming, giving you different energies. So of course, even I do get into that mood sometimes. But I mean, the more you get into it, you kind of try to be a chef that's not like that. I mean, I try my best to not be like that because at the end of the day, it affects you. It doesn't really affect anyone else, and it's going to eat you up in the long run. So you try to kind of figure it out.
How you came about the idea of indulge lifestyles and what made you go sustainable, and if you can expand more on private dining experience.
Sure. So I want to start off with the idea that, I mean, especially in the Middle East, a lot of people tell you since you're younger that you're supposed to figure out what you want to do early on. I want to disclose that I've changed my career 3 times. I started with my cousin, who's my sous chef right now. She went to culinary school. She was doing her own thing, so I started helping her because I was getting very frustrated with fashion. And we started an Instagram account. And as a person that lived abroad for a long time, there were so many things in the food realm when I moved back that I wanted to figure out, but I just didn't know where I could go to buy Japanese ingredients, stuff like that. So we just started posting about stuff like that, and we started cooking. And since I was a kid, I really, really loved food, but I just thought everyone loved food, like whatever, you go to restaurants, you love food. But getting into the kitchen and cooking, I just realized there are so many things that are similar to fashion, but I realized that I loved it more. With fashion, you have to wait for feedback for such a long time. With food, you can get feedback in the same day or the same moment, right after people eat. And I just love that rush of like seeing people's reaction, as well connecting with people. That's something that you don't really see a lot in the fashion industry. So since then, after us doing that, like the social media thing for a while, people are like, okay, cool, you have an Instagram account, but what's the point? Can we like order? Can you deliver? But then that was like not what I was envisioning, because that entailed disposable packaging. So after a while, and till today, every dinner that I have, I remember that feeling in the pit of my stomach, because that feeling never goes away. Um, the first time I had the dinner for 2 people, I was like anxious. I was like, what am I doing? But it worked out and it went amazingly. But with that comes, okay, now I want to do this as a career. I never went to culinary school. What do I do now? So one thing that I learned from the fashion industry is that I learned so much more from working than from going to school, especially when it comes to something related to a craft. So I decided that I wanted to reach out to any chef that I've ever watched, whether on Netflix, whether I've been following on social media. And that's something that I always tell to like explain or to say to younger chefs, is that don't ever allow anyone to tell you that there's a specific route to go or to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So I literally just I emailed Silo. Silo is the first zero waste restaurant in the world, which is located in London. And I just emailed them. And at the time, I've never worked in a real commercial kitchen and restaurant. So that was really scary. And I was like, listen, I want to intern, and I only have a couple of weeks. Can I come and join? And I genuinely didn't think that they were going to respond, because like people always tell you, there are these millions of chefs applying that have worked in all of these big restaurants. Why would they pick you? And to my surprise, ever since then, I've worked in 9 different Michelin star restaurants. They've never said no. So to anyone, I always say that to anyone that wants to pursue something, just email. You're not going to lose anything out of trying. Just try it. And since then, I've just started. I work when I have time, so every year I'll take 2 weeks, or between 2 weeks to 4 weeks off a year, to go and work with different restaurants and different chefs. And in between that, I indulge myself.
There's so much inspiration in that part of the story because, for one, in society in general, we're always told to like do one thing and then that's the thing for the rest of your life. So to you jumping from between one thing to the next is so inspiring to so many people, because a lot of people restrict themselves and then they just end up suffering, not happy with their lives, not feeling fulfilled, because they're sticking to like one area that they know they want to pursue something else in. So I think that that is something really beautiful, that you were able to see that for yourself and allow yourself to go there despite the odds, despite what society says, despite what the world usually goes by in terms of like what the norm is. And in terms of creating that sustainability also is so important, and it's something that truly it shows how much you care about it, because you did it with fashion and then you took it into the food industry and you were like, this is something that I don't want to continue happening, and I want to be able to manage a restaurant in a way that is of value to me. Like you took that in for yourself. And to me, that's why I think you were able to achieve everything that you did, because you had the vision, you had the intention. And when your intention is so aligned and then you take those actions, like that is what's going to guide you at the end of the day. And I think that is really remarkable, really beautiful, and it's really magical to see.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
How you deal with those challenges of whether it is the world telling you no, or whether it is your mind telling you no. How do you move yourself through that?
So I think as an Arabic woman or as a Saudi woman, we've been told no since we're born. So I guess we've been fighting on a daily basis. So by now, it's like second nature to be like, I'll do it, especially if you say no. So you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I'm used to this. And I mean, the older you get, the more you realize that you're gonna have to figure it out. You're just gonna have to figure it out. It doesn't get easier, because every day is a new challenge, whether it's in the kitchen or in the society or with what you want to accomplish. But I think if you have a clear vision, I think things somehow get easier, and you just surround yourself with the people that are like kind of positive and see the same things that you see. So I guess that's how you deal with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of the time people often ask us, like, how do you deal with the fear? How do you deal with the challenges? But people expect them to disappear. Well, they don't disappear. You just get stronger, you get more resilient over time, and you know how to work through them instead of them disappearing.
For sure.
Yeah. With the challenges of opening a sustainable restaurant, how have you managed that? Because I'm sure that to some degree you received a lot of pushback, whether it is people saying that the costs are too much or that you can't, it's impossible to do in this country. Nobody cares. How did you manage that?
So let me just give you a quick idea as to what Indulge Thyself is. So usually when people say zero waste fine dining restaurant, your mind directly goes to, okay, it's a restaurant that has zero waste when it comes to food. But actually it's a whole thought process where zero waste in our operations, in our logistics. We have to think about all of these details. So in general, in the food industry, most restaurants have a percentage of food waste between 20 to 30%. And a lot of people might say a zero waste concept is just, it's not really a sustainable concept. But when you think about it in a different way, the 20 to 30% of the food waste that you're throwing out is 20 to 30% of the money you're throwing out. So actually, when you think about it as a business, the more you keep, the more it makes sense economically. So when it comes to the operations, a big part of it is sourcing locally. So we kind of connect with a lot of farmers, a lot of local produce. We won't use the product if it comes in a disposable container. We go to the central food market and get our own produce in reusable containers. Whatever is left, which is a very small amount, it's about 2% after we extract all of the flavors, we use as compost to grow our own vegetable and fruit garden that we use in the food again. Some things that people are very curious about, they're like, but what do you do with dairy products, or what do you do with flour? So we think about it in a very natural way. You get the raw source. So with milk, we get milk from Taif or a farm in Mecca. We process all of these things, make our own butter, make our own yogurt. With flour, we mill our own flour. And a lot of people might think that takes a lot of time, but if you do this once or twice a week and you know where your product is coming from, it really translates in the food. So these are just a few things.
Yeah, I think it is like when you're accustomed to like the ritual of it almost, then it becomes easier. And I think that's why a lot of people, like, I guess, pivot away from living a more sustainable life, is because I think it's like so much work that I have to do all these different steps. But it's not as hard as people make it seem. Do you have any tips around how people can start just in small ways in their day-to-day life, or how you specifically, beyond the restaurant, how you live a more sustainable life?
There's a few things that you can consider. I mean, the easiest and the easiest way that you can start about it is just bottled water. Get a filtration system in your house. It's a lot cheaper than people think it is. And people don't really realize how much you're spending on bottled water when it's something that's supposed to be just something available all the time. Obviously, think about reusing containers as much as possible. Reducing buying. Arabs buy a lot of things that they don't need. So be intentional with your purchases. Make sure that you find ways to utilize the stuff that you have around you.
The connection between fashion and cooking, making food, is literally comes down to me, at least in terms of taste and aesthetic. And your food is very aesthetic, and I can only imagine how good it tastes. It's something that I personally believe, like, the aesthetics that you put into your food makes a difference with how you digest it, with how you feel about eating the food. So what is your relationship to that? Like, what is your relationship to the design of the food in terms of how, with your fashion background and how you consume food for yourself, like, is it any kind of ritualistic practice for yourself?
I got that question a lot when I changed from fashion to food. A lot of people are like, but it's so different. Actually, when you think about it, it's very, very similar. The only difference is the medium that I'm working with. Um, I think aesthetics is different from person to another. It's not a specific ritual, but in general, you're inspired by whatever you work with. And I really love working with Saudi produce. I've seen things, especially after COVID. I've traveled to. I mean, a lot of people are from Saudi, but when you ask them where have you been in Saudi, they'll always tell you like the major cities. But COVID slowed things down, and I've been to cities that I've never been to, and I've seen and visited farms, and I've seen produce that I've never seen in my life. We have this massive lemon called in Arabic trinch or citrus medica in English. And actually, when it comes down to it, it's the undomesticated lemon, and you could barely find it anywhere in the world. Here, if you ask the older generation, they're the only ones that would know what it is, and they just eat it raw or in tea. But to see something like this, because I remember asking the farmer the first time I saw it, it was like, oh my God, you have the Amalfi lemon here? And he looked at me with such like, he was so annoyed, as in like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what, isn't this the Italian lemon? And when he explained this to me, I was like, why don't people know about this? So yeah, just like kind of highlighting the things that inspire you, that are in the dish or the look of things, and obviously working with so many different amazing chefs, they'll teach you and show you different techniques that you would want to showcase as a chef in your food as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say, like, I feel like I would assume that there's some kind of limitations with like the produce you can get here, but it is interesting because like obviously as well with the sustainability and like making your own food, that also adds to like you can expand more with that because you don't feel limited because you have an abundance of things that you can create from
For
it.
sure. I think it's a statement that we live by, limitation breeds creativity. So whether you're confronted with this waste or whether you're not going to be able to use passion fruit because it's not local, there are a million other things that you could be using that are amazing, that are local, and that could be the sound of your creation, especially as a local creative.
You've worked in multiple Michelin restaurants and you said that you've emailed them and they've responded.
Mm-hmm.
To you, what do you feel like you did
Mm-hmm.
or didn't do
Mm-hmm.
to get those responses? Because you did this at a time when there was a lot of people not replying to emails,
Okay.
not hiring, not looking for anybody new to enter the space. So what made you different?
So I think it really matters as to what industry it is. So in the food industry, especially after COVID, a lot of chefs realized that they don't want to do this job anymore. So they're always looking for chefs. That's one thing, because this wasn't as easy when I was looking for jobs in fashion. But also something that I learned is that you should always, especially when it's a creative field, people have to always see your work before they sponsor, especially if you need like a visa or a sponsorship. That's a huge undertaking to any company or a restaurant. So when I started off my career, I would email them and I'm like, listen, I'm going to come and intern for free. And then you get there, and as soon as they see how committed and how good and how reliable you are, they will offer you a job and they will not care about the sponsorship. But also, as I say, it really depends from country to country and from job to job and how necessary these jobs are in the industry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that also in the restaurant industry, like people were looking, there was a lot of restaurants closing down, a lot of people who were under pressure. And if anything, I think that restaurants, majority of restaurants at least, were able to maintain some kind of, I guess, consistent flow because people were at home ordering in, wanting more dining experiences. If they couldn't go out, then they would want that dining experience at home. So I think that was very advantageous in that kind of way.
For sure. I think a lot of people figured out what they wanted to do, whether it's in the food industry or otherwise. Um, uh, yeah, people definitely got creative in the food industry.
I think that like one way that this really did come off, like about the way that you targeted these different restaurants of reaching out to people, came from this pure energy of like love. And I'm here because I want to work for you, but I'm also not desperate. You know, it was, I feel that in your presence, like there's this confidence, and this confidence is like kind of take it or leave it. This is what I'm showing you. This is what I'm here to do. And if you like it, you can take it. If not, I'm good. And I think that also ties a lot into how you receive things and how you are gifted things in life, in a way of when you're coming at things from a very desperate place, it's almost like there's a resistance there. And that's what causes that close off. But then when you're doing it with the passion and the love and you're surrendering to it and it's just something that you care about, so you want to bring it to the world, there's a lot more room for those things to enter your life.
I mean, I feel like things happen for a reason. Like in hindsight, what I was mentioning about New York is that when I was leaving, I did feel like a failure. But in hindsight, now that I'm doing what I love doing, I'm like, oh my God, thank God that that didn't work out. You never know. You really never know. I mean, all you can do is try your best. And when it's not working for a reason. I'm not saying just sit back and wait for things to happen. No, try a bunch of things because that's going to make things clearer. And I think the most important thing is to find a mentor. Find people that you aspire to be like, and ask all of these questions to. And I make sure every single restaurant that I go work at, I have a really good relationship with these chefs, at least the ones that will give me space to be, because they're amazing mentors. They've been doing this for so many years, and these are the people that I can rely on and have open dialogue with.
And in terms of those people that you worked with, like being in a Michelin star restaurant, I'm wondering how those relationships affected the way that you currently work in your own dining experience in your own restaurant, and how you stick to your own core values. Because I mean, from what I can only perceive is that it's probably very stressful working in a restaurant of Michelin star rating.
For sure. I mean, obviously, all you learn in whether it's in a kitchen or in a fashion house or any creative field is basic techniques. All you need are those basic techniques, and then you use your own creativity, your own local produce, your own techniques and local techniques. A lot of people don't know that sourdough was created in the Arab world, the origins. So we have all these things that, like, especially in Saudi for the past few years, everyone's raving about sourdough. It's been here for years. You guys only like it because it's Western. So, like, to kind of root yourself into the traditions, do your research, and, like, the inspiration is going to come to you somehow. Yeah.
That I didn't know that. So that's interesting. I like knowing these little facts every day. But in terms of continuing and being able to maintain a sustainable restaurant, because it's easy to sometimes just be like, you know what? It's so much quote unquote easier to not do that. Let me just do whatever I want. People can assume that I have a zero waste restaurant, right? But how do you stay disciplined to that value, to that belief, to the core essence of indulge thyself?
I think a lot of the things that are amazing, and that like some of the dishes that we have at Indulge are amazing because we have limitations. So one of the misos, we make our own miso that I learned from working at a fermentation restaurant, was made out of scraps. And I think that's one of the most amazing flavors that we've had in dishes in a restaurant. And that will always be a signature ingredient of Indulge. And to say that as a chef, I think that's the goal. Like, even when I say it right now, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That was amazing, that invention. And that would have never happened if we have not stayed true to our concept. A lot of people think it's a limitation, but I think limitation creates the most amazing things in different businesses. I guess it's the way you look at things. And as I mentioned, whatever I do, and it's a pledge to myself and to my team because they believe it as much as I do, is going to be a sustainable concept. And I genuinely don't see it as something difficult. I mean, when you go and get your produce from a farmer and you see how happy he is, especially when it's a small farmer, to be explaining it, and you as a chef taking his stuff and showcasing it in a completely different way, you're never going to want to go and buy your stuff from a company or a market.
And what makes you the proudest today of Indulge Thyself?
I think that to be able to have not a low waste restaurant, but a zero waste restaurant, and that concept coming out of Saudi and it being the first one in the Middle East and probably the second one or the third one around the world, just says a lot about the amazing things that could come out of Saudi. And super excited for everyone in all the different industries. Every single time I hear about a success story in the Arab world, I'm like, well, it's been a while, but I know that these people were around, and I'm super proud to see this happening.
I want to end with 3 questions.
Okay.
And the 3 questions are, what would you say to the person who is wanting to pivot in their career, wanting to change and try something new?
Do it in a smart way. Try it out as obviously don't leave your secure job. Try it out as a second job or in your free time. Make sure that when you leave it, it's something secure and it's not just something that you think you'd like. Definitely try it out. Because a lot of people think that they want to become a chef, and then you go into a kitchen for 12 hours. You hate the attitude, you hate the timings, you're not getting paid well. I mean, a lot of people think they like things. Try it out. Make sure it's a smart decision before you just jump into it, for sure. But it's definitely worth exploring if you feel that way.
Yeah, I think that's really important to say, because you want to just think about the switch. Like, you want to explore it, experiment with it first. Yeah. What would you advise anybody who's wanting to create a more sustainable environment in their business?
Of course, there's a way for everything. I mean, as I mentioned, usually doing something sustainable could be economically beneficial to any business. And if you're going to do it, make sure it's genuine and you're not just doing it and riding the wave of every other company that's trying to be sustainable because they think that that's going to get them profit. Yeah, of course, explore it. I mean, only if you're genuine about it.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it's easy to just say
About that.
Yeah. A motto that you follow that you wish other people could instill in themselves.
I don't know if it's a motto, but I feel like it's quite hard when you're younger to believe in your instincts, but just do that because usually you're never wrong.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. And I have to say, like, everything that you were saying, the way you speak about your food, the way you speak about it, you really show your passion and it radiates off of you. I definitely can see how much you care about what you do.
Thank you.
And I know that when you are putting that kind of energy into anything, it only brings goodness. And I know that there's so much good that comes through Indulge Thyself and through you and through the efforts and the energy that you put into it all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of course. And to anybody who wants to experience Indulge Thyself.
So a lot of people think you have to come to Indulge Thyself as a big group. So as of 2 years now, you could book Indulge as a restaurant style experience. You can come with we have tables of 2 and above. We also do catering for companies. So please, if you're interested in Saudi produce, think that it's worth trying Arabic ingredients in a fine dining setting, and interested in sustainability, we'd love to welcome you.
Well, thank you so much. And I do appreciate all the ways that you're changing the industry, the food industry in this country.
Thank you. I'm flattered.